Hi Lee, how are you?
Well, I'm good. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for meeting today, Lee. I sent you through some questions, and they're just like jumping off points. So really, we're kind of interested in you as an artist, but as your company, and in regards to the incomplete works of Shakespeare, which you'll be bringing to Lith this year. Your journey's slightly different to a lot of folk, so that's interesting. We spoke with Jo Chamarco last week, and again, her route into things is different. So, just so people get to know you a little bit, who are you? What do you do? How did you get where you are?
All right, it's quite the history. My name's Lee Hithersay, and I am artistic director of the Rubbish Shakespeare Company, which I have been for about 11 years now. I started very much as many of the people probably who you've spoken to already did. I was student at John Moores, finished university, no idea what I wanted to do. And we just set up a company, the Rubbish Shakespeare Company, and it's we did it on a very part-time basis until about 2015 when we realized, oh, we could actually make a bit of money out of this. And then we started to take things seriously, and we're doing quite well. But otherwise, I think I come from more of a comedy background. Um, I've done lots of sort of Edinburgh shows, lots of sketch comedy, and most recently I've been training in clowning and things like that. So yeah, I do lots of jobs where I have the basis of something, and then I have to sort of fill it in. Is what I say is I'm quite good at and getting a specialism of.
Okay, so filling in the blanks is the improv bit. So
I'd say so, yeah.
you've got a scenario or a brief, and then you make it up in between.
Yeah, so even now on tomorrow Friday, I've got to do a show called The Bayo Travesty, where the only thing that I knew about the project was that it had to be an interactive bit of storytelling about the Bayo Tapestry. And I have a loose structure, and we'll see what happens.
So you tend to work with young people, is that right?
Yeah,
Or a
yeah.
mix?
I suppose that's right. I mean, for many years, I was heavy into sort of the sketch comedy scene and sort of character comedy, a bit of stand up. So I very much at one stage wasn't. I did performances mostly for adults, but I somehow fell sort of into the children's and family theatre scene. So Rubbish Shakespeare Company originally was theatre and education company, and then we've sort of morphed into touring theatre when we realised that people enjoyed it outside of an education setting. Um, but yeah, somehow I have just fallen into sort of the family friendly stuff, and it's been paying dividends for me for the last couple of years, to be honest. I also do a show called Funny Looking Kids um, with Gav Cross, who's a storyteller, and Rob Bond and Alice Robom, and a guy called Liam. And so I had a lot of history doing sketch comedy, and that show is making a new show, an hour and a half show, a new one sort of every month. So that's having to come up with the material for that. And children sometimes are the greatest of audiences because if they don't find it funny, they won't laugh. No pity laughs. It
So
is
there's
literally like being thrown to the lions or something. It's
so as they say,
beautifully brutal.
as I would say back in the day, if you played Glasgow and it was like a graveyard, I think if they didn't laugh, you'd just see seats because they'd up and
Yeah.
leave. So if they didn't like you, they told you.
And
Okay.
I think that describes Liverpool just as well at the minute, to be
Well, yeah,
honest.
Liverpool second on that. You know, if they don't
Yeah.
like you, they'll get up and walk, which I like that honesty. I kind of go, well, yeah, okay. So obviously you've been knocking around for a number of years. Have you seen any live improv? And if so, where did you first see it?
Yeah, I've seen lots of live impro. I think this year I'm going up to the Fringe again, and it'll be my 10th year. So I don't know how you can survive 10 years of visiting Edinburgh Fringe without seeing some impro.
Yeah.
Um, First lot of improv, I think would have been Hoof. So I think it
Oh,
would
did
have
you?
been
Did
you.
you see that?
Yeah, I
Okay.
distinctly remember you actually. Uh, and I think Katie Cross was in it as well,
Yeah.
another Liverpool performer. But that's the first. I think that's the first proper one. I always enjoyed him. I always. I remember even in the school hall at lunchtime. Me and a group of us would just sort of do sort of half an hour of improv every day. Remember his distinct one where we were all butterflies impregnating each other. Uh, but yeah, I've always enjoyed the idea of it. But yeah, the first time I saw improv, I think would have been you, then followed by sort of maybe impropriety, and then going to the Fringe. The only people you get flyed by is improv troops. So
Well, that's normally
you
because there's quite a lot of them.
yeah, we I'll be honest with you, this is probably a bad story, this, but you know, tis the season and that it
Keep it clean.
doesn't paint me in a good light. Is me and my friend Rob, very, very drunk one night for his birthday, went to the Midnight Cabaret, which is a show we actually took over the year after. And there was an improv troupe on who we didn't like. I get on with the fella now, but at the time he was a bit forceful, a bit territorial on the flyering circuit, you know, in the venue that we were operating in. So every ask for that they shouted for, we responded with Blade Runner, and we did that for a good sort of 15 minute of their set. Where's this set? Blade Runner, and they eventually had to go with it, and it was magic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we intended to heckle them, and in the end, they just ran around with knives. So you
Oh.
know, they flipped it on its head. So I know
Yeah.
that doesn't paint me out in a good light, but it was funny.
Yeah.
We really,
I like that running around with blades though. There you go. We improvisers can deal with anything. Or pretty much anything. Okay. So so obviously we've been working together on the incomplete works of Shakespeare.
oh yeah,
We've done
conflict,
some,
lots
well,
of conflict.
about a year now, on and off every week. Um, so what, when we first talked, what did you think it was going to be?
I don't know. I suppose I don't really have an idea of it, a sense of it in my head. Um, at the time, I'd just got a develop your creative practice from the Arts Council, so I'd just got lots of money to go and study a bit of cloning. So when you actually rang me initially suggested it to me, um, I was sort of in the mood to collaborate with people. Now I've always sort of worked with quite a close, tight knit group of people. More out of uh, necessity rather than choice a lot of the time. Just I know people who can do that the sort of same thing as me, which is improvise around the scripts. Certain actors and people can't do that. And I don't know. I think I was just in the mood for collaboration. I think you caught me right at the right moment at the right time. And I was like, yeah, why not? Why don't I just say yes to this and we make something and we see how it pans out. I didn't have a clue sort of what the format of it would be or anything like that. But it seemed like a good idea. As I say, I've never done any proper improv. I'd never done any sort of professional improv at all. But I knew sort of I had the ability to story tell, and I knew I had the ability to, come out with the funnies occasionally. And yeah, and I suppose it caught me at the right time, and the prospect of doing a second show at Shakespeare North Playhouse as well was a bit of a hook. So they'd asked us, would you put on something, and we teamed up, and we had another a new piece of work in their opening season, which is a pretty big deal, to be honest. So it all sort of all the events sort of coalesced into one sort of nice perfect opportunity. But at the time, I didn't know. I didn't have a clue. I was like, oh, it wasn't so much a case of I'll leave that to Mark. I think in my mind, I was like, we'll see what happens. I'm very good at letting the creative process sort of develop naturally and quite fluidly, and just seeing what comes out of it and whether you know, whether it works. And I like things to be more organic. But I remember from the start, the first sort of little session that we did, I don't think we really did any Shakespearean improv. We just did a little bit. But I remember afterwards coming out and be like, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that.
So,
You're
so
doing that every week. That's all right. I can do that. I can spend 2 hours of my time doing that.
so in regards to clown and the discoveries you made as part of your DYCP, your training in that, because clown has an element of, let's say, spontaneity to it. How do you what would you equate? Are they equivalents, or are they something else? I mean, I know sort of clown is around discovering that sort of idiot that we mask and then exposing that to the audience and discovering a sort of inner clown.
Yeah, well, there's quite a few schools of thought on it, to be honest, and I think I wouldn't define myself as a clown. I think I sit somewhere oddly in the middle of everything, which sometimes a nice place to be. It's, you know, you've got varied influences, and the best films, the best art you ever see have got a mixture of influences that make it more interesting. But clowning, yeah, very much about being open, about shedding that sort of your contrived self, you know, that the person that you project, and being your actual self, and being open to opportunities and free and a bit more spontaneous with an audience, sort of working on how to draw them into you. And yeah, I also see clown as being like a lot of little contracts you make with the audience. This is what's going to happen. This is what we're doing. You build a whole sort of routine out of that. And I think improv and clown, for me, a lot of the time seem basically the same thing. I think with our show in particular as well, is we are actors trying to put on the play, and that whole aspect of it, that sort of breaking of the fourth wall, and that sort of that drop, and those asides and things like that, where we can actually be ourselves, really does the same like as clowning does. Really, you see the real person, you see that person that you can empathize with and that you're invested in. And yeah, something about the nature of the construct of then putting a character on top of that sort of it is like a lot of clown acts, really.
Yeah, so the idea of, so if you're playing sort of theatre clown, is the idea of the personal, the you, the stage persona, the heightened version of you, and then the stage persona playing a clown, and all of those three things are then interlinking, which makes it a sort of slightly more complex set of things to play.
Which is nice for a Shakespeare show as well, because he had so many sort of plays within plays.
Yeah.
But it's just being free as well, and being able to take any opportunities you're given and use them. And you know, it's the same sort of it's the same idea in the same form, that you know, and there's no mistakes, everything's a gift, unless you really do it wrong.
Yeah, so it depends on the ask for. So Blade Runner, and
Blade Runner.
And so
I don't regret it. I'd go back and I'd do it again.
Yeah, well, you know, like you said, it was a moment of magic. So kind of they artistically took on board your offer and then flipped it on its head, which is often, you know, very clever. And I'm sure you were, with your beer in hand, went, "Way!"
Oh no, we were still laughing at the fact they'd done it.
Oh, okay. Well,
there's no winners in terms of us on that night. Winners on stage, not us.
Okay, so thinking about a moment of magic that you've witnessed, either in rehearsal room, and we're talking about improv here, rehearsal room or clown or on stage, is there a moment of magic where you go, wow, and that sticks with you?
I've got maybe two.
Okay.
And they're both in schools.
Oh.
So obviously, the Shakespeare Company started as theatre and education. We still do schools. It's how you sort of pay the bills, really, between the touring stuff. One of my favourite ones, and it's all audience interaction as well. So one of my favourite ones is we were performing Romeo and Juliet in a school. And there's a bit in our show where Romeo goes out into the audience, and he asked for poison to kill himself, and the famous death scene at the end of the play. And this actor at the time called Danny just went into the audience. He's like, "Have you got any poison? Have you got any poison?" And we set those moments up so anything can happen. You can have a lovely bit of improv in those moments. Have you got any poison? Have you got any poison? And there was one kid just sat next to a teacher, and you can tell the teacher was there for a reason. And Danny went over to him and was like, "Have you got any poison? Have you got any poison?" He stared him dead in the eyes and just went, "No, but I can break your neck in 2 places, killing you instantly." And then the teacher next went, "Michael!" and slapped him on the leg. And then it was just the moment of watching Danny, who'd asked him for the poison, just staring at him. And then just, "Have you got any poison?" And just going to somebody, "Have you got any poison?" Just ignoring it and moving on. But it was like a wonderful moment. The other moment of magic, which is always sort of cited by the people who were there in the company, is we turned up to a school once, and we had the school had booked in A Midsummer Night's Dream. So we walked in, we had all the props, walking in with a wig. So the teacher went, what? Who's who? You've got a wig on. Like, "Oh yeah." So he's Titania, in with the staff. That's Oberon. This one with the red sort of 80s mohawk wig. That's Puck. And she just went, "No. We ordered Romeo and Juliet." I was like, "No, you didn't. No, you ordered Midsummer Night's Dream." And then we went to the emails, and it was A Midsummer Night's Dream. That's the play they booked. And then the kids started walking into the hall, and she was like, "Oh, okay, but I'm sure you can do Romeo and Juliet." And then she just left. And I knew the Romeo and Juliet. Alex, one of the other company directors, knew the other Romeo and Juliet. Rob and John had never done the play before. So we basically did improvise Romeo and Juliet that day. It was brilliant. So it was insane. There was a bit where I just stormed off the stage in like a random sort of bickering moment, sort of breaking of the fourth wall, a side bit, and just I climbed the ladder of like this sort of theatre space and just started throwing costume from the costume cupboard at the audience, like from about a story up, from a floor up. And it was great fun. We got them through it, even to the point where we were whispering lines in their ears as they were on stage. And and the kicker at the end was we finished it. Obviously, all energy left our bodies at that point. We were shells of people after it had finished, because so much sort of mental and physical energy got into like getting it to work. And as we were walking out, we passed one teacher, and he just went, "That was better than last year." It's like, it probably was. It was probably the most spontaneous show anyone in that school hall had ever seen.
So it was generally in the moment, generally edge of your pants, genuinely winging it, as they say. Thinking about the show, The Incomplete Works. So this is a family-friendly show for ages 6+. How might you describe that to somebody if they hadn't seen it or hadn't read the blurb?
Like a Pixar film is how we usually try and sell things. So I feel like we are living in like a weird generation in terms of there's still sort of a weird era anyway. There's still a generation that still see children's shows and family shows as being for children or for families. But generally, the entertainment that we're all reared on these days is all ages family entertainment. It's like, I remember watching The Simpsons when I was 4 or 5 years old, and I still go back and watch those old, not new episodes of The Simpsons, you'd be crazy, but I still go and watch like those old episodes of The Simpsons and find new stuff in them every time. So what we try and create, and it's been an ethos of the company from the beginning, is a show that everyone can enjoy. We call our shows true family shows. So the idea is that mum can turn up with kids, or dad can turn up with kids, with grands, nans, uncles. The entire family can turn up, and everyone's going to have a good time, regardless. Because that's sort of how we make it. We've got the jokes for the older parents. Some of them are a bit racy, but you know they have to go over the heads of the kids. Which in and of itself is a lovely moment when you see the parents laughing and the kids like, ha ha, oh yeah, ha ha ha, ha. Not really understanding the joke. But then we also have to have those really big, silly clowning moments and lots, you know, the physical comedy, the slapstick, keep the kids on the edge of the seat. But also the storytelling has to be clear, so the kids can enjoy it. But you know, on top of that, you want some nice levels as well happening in there that sort of other people can enjoy. You want it to work. You want the you want the whole thing to run on several different levels, and I think that's what we try and do. And even in this, what's been nice is the audiences have been a bit different every time. So sometimes we've had lots of children, and for those shows, you know, we ended one of them with a dance off against the entire audience, which was great. But then we had a later one at Shakespeare North, which was on at 7 o'clock, where we had like two. It was mostly adults and sort of two, probably just quite young teens. And that one you know, could push the envelope out a little bit because we saw who was in our audience. We saw there's no children, so what can we do? I mean, with this show anyway, I'd always want to make it family friendly in terms of like no swears, nothing too rude or salacious, because for me it's got to almost keep in Shakespeare's canon as well. So you know, Shakespeare made, you know, he did make dick jokes, but they were very well written,
very well disguised.
Yes, they were always. There's always that bit of mischief to them in the language that could go over people's heads if it came to it. So it's kind of the same mantra as that, really. Is we'd never do more than what you'd see in a Shakespeare play, unless, you know, it's a modern retelling where, like, I don't know, Titus Andronicus and just kick heads about on stage or something.
Okay, so there's a level of interactivity. So
lots interactivity, but not interactivity that is abrasive. We want everyone to have a good time. We like our shows to feel quite joyous, and there's no sort of victims in that.
Yeah.
Or if there is a victim, the game's knowing there's a contract. You know, we set that game with them, and it's obvious what it is, and everything is almost in that regard is almost knowing, in a way, that this is a construct and you're taking part in this, but it's, you know, you are not the victim, and this is quite well controlled.
Yeah. So you've got further plans for it. So obviously it's going back to Shakespeare North in late July, and then it's going to the Pleasance above as part of their children and family friendly offer, which is really good. So well done. If you were to invite somebody to guest curate for LIF 2024, so be it a clown, living or dying, or an improv person, if you wanted to come and teach, who would you think you might want to bring?
Who would I want to bring?
So, for example,
Gollier.
Go on.
Gollier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just tell everyone the shit. I'm not too sure. I've been reading a lot of John Wright recently, and I think what he knows is comedy. But obviously, I like what you've done with the festival in that there is a mixture of you know, there's a lot of comedy on, but also you do have sort of the serious improv on as well, which I know he's good at. He's good with too. But so someone Fleabag. What's her name? Phoebe Waller-Bridge. There you go.
Phoebe Waller-Bing Bang. Yeah.
Yeah, she's doing the Fringe at the minute. She's the ambassador for the Fringe. So what you would get is, you know, hypothetical world is you'd get that exposure. Oh,
okay.
There you go. I'm doing you a favor.
So you're thinking about the marketing for next year?
Yeah, that's what I think. That's the level I think on all the time.
Okay.
Actually, no.
John Wright,
I put that in the bin because she didn't give us any money the Fringe Fund this week.
Oh,
So
don't be mean. She gave the Fringe £100,000. I think that's fairly generous. I don't think she had any of the decision making involved. She's far too busy doing other brilliant things. So John Wright, okay, yeah, I could absolutely see John coming and doing something because he's a big, one of the things I'd be really interested in is Mask. And John's a big advocate and a big kind of, having originally set up Trestle, he's explored a lot in terms of Mask and the ability or what is unlocked from the Mask and the ability to be able to create spontaneously as a result of that freedom. I think that would be something really interesting to certainly add to the mix. Okay.
Kirsten Wig.
Okay.
Or one of the famous former Second City SNL improvers.
Yeah,
I think that any of them would be good. I'm thinking of you as sort of a festival in Liverpool. So hey, let's bring you some exposure in that regard.
Well, yeah. Todd, who's my pal who taught me improv, is in the new Picard season as Captain Shaw. So
well, why don't you have him then? Why don't you get him into?
Because he's busy filming stuff in America and being super famous, whilst hosting, lots of Dungeons and Dragons things and doing other things. But yeah, no. I mean,
honest, if I was going to get a curator, and I won't pick any. I'd pick.
He wouldn't pick you.
No, I wouldn't. I don't know the scene as well as other people. As I say, I straddle the form. And the lines
straddle
the form. But yeah, I am
like some sort of colossus.
Yeah, I sit in at the nexus of art.
Okay. You're the Venn diagram, are you? That does this.
Yeah. Certain bits of that Venn diagram spread a bit further than others, though.
Yeah. Okay.
But if I was going to, I'd get a programmer of a theatre I respect. There you go. That's what I would do.
Oh, okay. But
I know you think
a huge amount of theatres program improv, so it's
no, which is an issue. I think it's part of the reason why the art form might not be as respected sort of as other art forms. And the thing is, these big theatres are going to have to lead by example. And there's plenty of good stuff. I did watch Ostentatious actually quite recently at the what's that? Yes, the Epstein, and that was great. That was a great evening's entertainment, and it was pretty packed. But obviously, that has star power behind it and things like that. So, someone from the musical comedy duo was in it and things like that. But that was great, even though you could tell in the interval that they had. Oh no, I might not say anything. Actually, I could get done for libel.
But the point is there are certain like Showstoppers and there are Ostentatious. I mean, they've spent many years prior to getting to that point. And I think I think you're right. I think, or as I sort of suggested, I think there is a trust issue. The way of addressing that trust issue is to kind of going, look, improv inspired work, spontaneous work sells. If you can put it in under an umbrella, and you can prove that it can work and there's an audience for it. I think you're right. I think theatres could be slightly braver, but I think I understand people's trust issues because it's never the same. So you could have one amazing show and then not so good, and and it's about training.
And also, sorry, cut in. I know we've not got a lot of time left. Yeah, it's a big festival thing at the minute, improv, and you can sort of see why it's like a nice. I think people see it as like a nice little novelty, but it seems like the festivals happen, but the whole point of the festivals is they're supposed to be trade shows. So then people go and watch these should watch these improv shows and then book them for the spaces, and it just doesn't seem to be happening. And now people who do improv at the festivals are always seem to be there on the jollies and having a good time rather than, sort of fulfilling the purpose of what that festival is.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we've discovered in Liverpool, there's a lack of stage space. There's only so much space that people can actually get
Yeah, there is that.
into. Whereas, the Fringe is pay to play. So you basically go and have
And I
a
think,
fun holiday whilst performing.
yeah, I think when that happens as well, sort of things, it happens in all industries. I think things become quite territorial in a way, and people trying to hang on to what they can. I think that happens a lot with improv in that um, people could share the love a bit more. It feels like, and promote each other's projects, and it feels like that sort of doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think that's with everybody. I mean, when you're
No, as I say, it
working,
happens definitely in every industry, but
I don't think improv's particularly unique in that. I agree. I think people could be, just doing it is great, but then supporting each other and telling other people about it is also highly valuable, because to break out of your own little bubble, if you're on social media and stuff like that, it's just helpful. And I think
it's
appreciate the support. Okie dokie. So I'm going to just wrap us up here, Lee. So thank you very much to Lee Hithersay from Rubbish Shakespeare Company. Lee and company will be performing the incomplete works of Shakespeare in Unity 1 on Saturday, the 22nd of April at 2:15 p.m. If you'd like to book tickets are £8 and £10. Or you can book a day ticket, which costs £30, in which you get to see 6 shows for £30. Tickets are available from www.unitytheatreliverpool.co.uk. Go on to their What's On page, slide down, see the festival improv page, and all the ticket details are there. So once again, a big thank you to Lee Hithersay. Take care, Lee. I shall see you very, very, very soon, my friends. Ciao, 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 ciao.